Hello, my name is Lindsay Reynolds, and I am the Riparian and Wetland AIM Lead with the Bureau of Land Management at the National Operations Center. The following presentation will cover an introduction and overview of monitoring sample designs. Let's begin with a basic question. What is a sample design? A sample design describes the process by which sample sites are selected to represent a study area and meet a monitoring objective. A sample design includes clearly defining monitoring objectives, defining a study area or a resource of interest, identifying reporting units, identifying stratification, if any, then conducting sample site selection using either a random algorithm for random probabilistic designs or manually selecting targeted sites. And finally, a sample design includes a plan for implementing and managing the sample design in the current sample season and into the future. Similar terms to sample design are the terms sample approach and monitoring design or monitoring approach. These terms are similar and can be used interchangeably. Please see the glossary in the field protocol for lentic, riparian, and wetland systems or on the AIM website for detailed definitions. Here are some important terms when we're discussing sample designs and that we will touch on in this presentation. They include the study area, which is the area where you want to make inference, stratification or strata inside the study area, which includes dividing the study area into subgroups or subunits called strata, random points, which are selected using a random algorithm inside the study area, and where each point has a known probability of being selected. Random points are tracked during sampling by noting their sample status using the labels sampled, not sampled, reattempt needed, or rejected. And last, the term targeted points, which are manually selected points based on local management or monitoring objectives. They are for site-specific applications and cannot make inference beyond the sample point. We will go into some detail into each of these terms and concepts in this presentation. So, how do we gather data or information on the landscape to understand our resource using sample designs? We want to know the condition of a resource on the landscape, so we must collect monitoring data, but we can't go everywhere all the time. So how do we use a sample design to select sample points and make inference to our study area of interest? The goal of a sample design is to select an appropriate sample from a resource of interest in order to estimate attributes of that resource in an unbiased and cost-effective manner. Most of the time, we can't measure all of the resources we're interested in. We simply don't have infinite time or resources. Thus, we must sample or subsample our resources. Sampling is using measurements from a selected subset to estimate attributes of the entire resource. In other words, to make inference to the condition of the entire resource. There are lots of different ways to pick a sample. Sampling is statistically valid if it makes inference to an entire resource if it gives an unbiased estimate of the resource. Sample designs may be probabilistic or random, or sample designs can be targeted. Probabilistic sample designs are randomly selected sites within a study area and provide inference to the whole study area. Targeted sample designs include manually selecting points based on a local management objective and cannot make inference beyond the sample point, so targeted sampling is for very local information. Sample designs are always objective-driven. Objectives can be short-term for treatment effectiveness or grazing permit renewals, for example, and objectives can be long-term, such as to report sage-grouse habitat condition or to contribute to land use plan effectiveness determinations or in anticipation of unknown future questions. The study area defines the extent of the resource you're interested in. For example, the study area could be all BLM lands in a field office or all wetlands within an allotment. The study area is the maximum area you want to draw conclusions for or make inference about. In statistical parlance, the study area is called the population. The target population or study area is what you want to know about, or what you want to make inference to. The sample population is what you actually get to and sample. So the sample population is your population of sample points that you plan to visit and collect data. Example study areas could be all wetlands on BLM lands in Colorado, or as shown on the right in the map, all wetlands in a district or field office area such as the West Desert District in Utah. Stratification is another important concept in sample designs. Stratification is the process of dividing a population or study area up into subgroups or subunits called strata. Stratification is best done prior to sampling so that it's unbiased. Reasons to stratify include variability in indicators is different across different types of land, for example, forests versus grasslands. You might also stratify to ensure different types of land or uncommon portions of a study area are sampled adequately. And last, you might stratify in order to deal with differences in land potential. For riparian and wetland areas, we often stratify by size, small, medium, and large wetlands, in order to ensure that small wetlands are adequately represented in the sample design, because otherwise most points would fall in large wetlands. Let's look at an illustrative example of a sample design, for example, in the Northwest District of Colorado. Let's say we want to take a sample on a landscape scale of our resources of interest across the entire study area, which in this case is the Northwest District of Colorado, so that we can gain inference to the condition of our riparian and wetland resources across the whole study area. In order to gain inference to the whole landscape, our study area of interest and target population are wetlands on BLM lands in the Colorado's Northwest District. We will stratify by wetland size, so large, medium, and small wetlands, and we will use a spatially balanced random sample algorithm to select sample points in each of our strata on BLM lands. BLM lands here are shown in yellow across the study area. So here's what a sample design could look like while it's drawn. First, it might select 5 large wetland points, 5 medium wetland points, and 5 small wetland points. By selecting points within each strata in a random, unbiased way, then once all points are sampled, we can make inference to our target population, which is all wetlands in the Northwest District. In this illustrative example, invented for demonstration purposes, we have sampled 15 points across the district, and our data could say, for large wetlands, 75% are wet meadows. Average woody height in large wetlands in the Northwest District is 2.3 meters. Average non-native plant cover is 15%, and average standing water depth is 30 centimeters. We can make statements for the whole population from our data because the sample points have been drawn in a random, unbiased way to make inference to the target population. Site evaluation of random sites and tracking site fates is a critical step when sampling random sample designs. The fate of each site needs to be tracked and recorded. The fates can include sampled, that the site has been successfully sampled, sampled and shifted less than 50 meters. The site was sampled, but the plot location had to be shifted away from the original location. Or a fate could be reattempt needed. The plot was not able to be sampled during the initial visit, but it could be sampled at a later time, and then the reason would need to be listed. So you'd list the reason. Or the plot may be rejected and not sampled. Then the reason would need to be documented. See Table 3 in the Field Protocol for Lentic Riparian and Wetland Systems. It covers site evaluation, general site statuses, and specific reasons for unsuccessful outcomes of a sample location. Targeted sites are an important component of many sample designs in BLM project areas. They can supplement and augment information from a random sample design. Targeted sites can be very informative for land use effects. They can address immediate management concerns. Targeted sites are for specific land uses or management goals, for example, grazing or a restoration project. However, some important considerations for targeted sites are that results from targeted sites cannot be statistically extrapolated to the larger population. They can potentially underestimate heterogeneity. They can be sensitive to loss or disturbance. However, targeted and statistical sampling complement each other, and when both are used together, can provide a more holistic picture of information about riparian and wetland resources in a study area. Strong monitoring programs often have a mix of both targeted and random points. In this presentation, we have covered several important terms and concepts related to sample designs. Please review these terms and concepts before conducting site evaluation and collecting monitoring data in order to track critical information about each sample location, their fate, and the data collected at each site. This concludes the presentation on monitoring sample designs. Thank you for listening.